Good morning. How's everyone doing today? I hope you're doing well. All right, today we finished Brave New World. Can you believe it? So today we are going to start Animal Farm by George Orwell because I have received several requests for Animal Farm. I forgot to open it. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Okay, here we go. It's a very short book. It's only 100 pages. So I didn't check to see how long the chapters were, but it seems like we could do chapter 1 and chapter 2 today very easily. So that's why I've included both chapters in the title. All right, I don't know anything about this book, so we'll be discovering this together. Now, if this is your first time watching, we are not just reading the book, we're stopping and talking about interesting vocabulary words. So if you're advanced enough to want to improve your English by reading English, then there are probably certain words that you already know, and we won't stop to talk about them. But when we find interesting phrases or words, we definitely talk about them. And if you are watching this live with me, then I encourage you to ask questions in the chat. That makes it more interesting. If I don't explain a word to you, ask me in the chat, and I will be happy to stop and talk about the word. That's the whole point of the video. So don't think you're interrupting anything. All right, let's see. Well, let's get started. We've got chapter 1 of Animal Farm by George Orwell. All right, Mr. Jones of the Manor Farm had locked the hen houses. Now, a hen is a female chicken. So a hen house is where all the female, the lady chickens are to lay eggs. So Mr. Jones of the Manor Farm had locked the hen houses for the night, but he was too drunk to remember to shut the pop holes. Well, I don't know what a pop hole is. Let's see. Hen house pop hole. It sounds horrible. Hen house pop hole. I guess it's just part of the structure of a hen house. Let's see. I thought I just saw something that was giving all the names of a... Does this explain it? Oh, I can't even read that. Making a pop hole. Well, here's a video about how to make a pop hole, but we're not going to watch it. It's 6 minutes long. Well, I don't know. It's part of a hen house, I guess. Do we really need to know? Probably not. All right. Maybe that's the door. It seems like there are a lot of pictures of doors for this, so it's probably a door. Okay, a hen house door. Had locked the hen houses for the night, but he was too drunk to remember to shut the pop holes. With the ring of light from his lantern dancing from side to side, he lurched across the yard, kicked off his boots at the back door, drew himself a last glass of beer from a barrel in the scullery, and made his way up the bed where Mrs. Jones was already snoring. Okay, let's look at the word lurch. Let's get a definition of lurch. We'll reread it in a minute after we talk about a few words. So lurch is make an abrupt, unsteady, uncontrolled movement or series of movements. To stagger. Staggering is when you're drunk. If you drink too much and you try to walk, you stagger. Lurch is always a negative word. And to me, I'm surprised at this definition, because when I think of lurch, I think of someone standing half hidden somewhere. You know, if you know the Addams Family, the servant, his name was Lurch. And the reason they call him Lurch is I think he's always just standing in the shadows. And maybe you can see a little bit of him. He's just always there to the side. Maybe you don't actually always see him. And they only show pictures of Lurch. Oh well. Okay, let's go back. I thought there were a couple of other words in this. So he kicked off his boots at the back door and drew himself a glass of... Remember, draw. I mean, you know draw is making a picture. But draw also means extract. So I think it's important to talk about that because it's not very common knowledge for people learning English. So, for example, maybe you recognize this picture. This is a well, a water well. This is where you get your water from. And we talk about drawing water from a well. And that means like taking the water from the well, extracting the water from the well. So when it says he drew himself a glass of beer, it just means like taking water from a well. That's all it means. So he drew himself a last glass of beer from a barrel in the scullery. I think a scullery is part of a kitchen. It's not really used anymore. Or maybe it is, because when I typed scullery, I was thinking that I would just get very old pictures, but maybe they just use it in the UK. So I think it's just part of a kitchen where you keep things, where you wash up, where you wash dishes and things like that. I would not use that, ever. See, I was thinking we would get pictures like this of a very old kitchen. Because the only time I ever hear that word is when I'm reading books or watching movies or TV shows from a long time ago. I don't hear modern people using that word. Or like this. Here, this is a scullery maid. You always hear about scullery maids. It's like the lowest kind of maid in the kitchen. When you're watching old British TV shows from the about the Victorian times, the scullery maid is always the worst one. The worst job to have. Because I think she just washes dishes and cleans things. She doesn't do anything important. All right, let's go back and read it. I think we've got most of the words that were interesting here. So with the ring of light from his lantern dancing from side to side, he lurched across the yard, kicked off his boots at the back door, drew himself the last glass of beer from the barrel in the scullery, and made his way up to where Mrs. Jones was already snoring. That's snoring. As soon as the light in the bedroom went out, there was a stirring. Stirring means moving. A fluttering. Fluttering is a movement like this, like a movement of a butterfly flying. That's fluttering. All through the farm buildings. Word had gone round during the day that old Major, the prize middle white boar, had a strange dream on the previous night and wished to communicate it with the other animals. It had been agreed that they should all meet in the barn as soon as Mr. Jones was safely out of the way. Old Major, so he was always called, though the name under which he had been exhibited was Willingdon Beauty. To exhibit is to show something. So if this animal, what kind of animal was it? I didn't even catch that. I've got to go back and white boar. A boar is like a pig. I better show you a picture of a boar. White boar. This is not boar, B-O-R-E. This is boar, B-O-A-R. Yeah, it's just a type of pig. Here's a white boar. So, well, I don't know if they do this sort of thing in your country, but in the US and I guess also maybe in the UK, in farming communities, sometimes they have special celebrations where which are called fairs, Fair, and there's food and music, and the farmers like to show their best animal to everyone, and they give prizes. So the person with the best pig will get a prize, or the person with the best horse will get a prize. So that's why that's why they say he's got an exhibition name. This is the best pig on the farm, and he's taken to fairs, and they say, look at this wonderful pig. This is the best pig, and he wins awards. But so his name is Old Major, but when he is being exhibited, when they take him to these fairs, his name is Willingdon Beauty. Old Major, so he was always called, though the name under which he had been exhibited was Willingdon Beauty, was so highly regarded on the farm that everyone was quite ready to lose an hour's sleep in order to hear what he had to say. At one end of the big barn, on a sort of raised platform, Major was already ensconced on his bed of straw. Let's look at the word ensconced. By the way, let me show you one thing. This is a very useful word, sconce, because this is very common in houses and buildings. When you have a light which is attached to the wall in this way, it's called a sconce. S-C-O-N-C-E. But now let's take a look. Let's see how that's related to the word ensconced. Ensconced. Established or settled in a comfortable, safe, or secret place. So, to be ensconced somewhere is to be safe and comfortable somewhere. Maybe that's why they call it a sconce. You fix the light to the wall and then it won't move. You can't push it over and break it. At the end of the big barn, on a short raised platform, Major was already ensconced on his bed of straw, under a lantern which hung from a beam. He was 12 years old, and had lately grown rather stout. Stout is a nice word for fat. But he was still a majestic-looking pig, with a wise and benevolent appearance, in spite of the fact that his tushes had never been cut. Well, that must be a different word. I'm thinking of the word tush, which means your back part here, tush. But this must be something else. Let's see. Pig. It's probably pronounced tush. Let's see. Pig tush. Oh, well, I guess it's... I'm not sure. When I look at pictures, they show pictures like this. Maybe it does mean the same thing. Maybe it is tush. This is a pig tush. But let me ask for the definition, since the pictures are not helping. Let's see. The tush has never been cut. Seems like somebody is asking this question on a forum about Animal Farm. Well, I don't know. Hog's tush, Nantucket. What do you think tush hog means? Well, I don't know. I don't really... Let me ask ChatGPT. You can't get answers on Google anymore. It's useless. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Oh, it does. I guess it still means it's tush. It's this. That's what I thought. That's a strange thing. Why would you cut a pig's tush? I don't know. Tush, you know the word butt, maybe butt, or ass, which is not a nice word. But tush is a funny word. It's a cute word. It's not a bad word. So if you want to talk about this, you can say butt is not so bad. Tush sounds funnier. It sounds a little bit cuter, a little bit nicer. Or behind, something like that. But I wonder why would you cut a pig's butt? I don't know. Okay. Let's see. He was still a majestic looking pig, with a wise and benevolent appearance, in spite of the fact that his tushes had never been cut. I don't know what that means. Before long, the other animals began to arrive and make themselves comfortable after their different fashions. First came 3 dogs, Bluebell, Jessie, and Pincher. Then the pigs, who settled down in the straw immediately in front of the platform. The hens perched themselves on the window sills. When a bird is standing on something, that's called perching. And actually, let's take a look at that word for a minute. So you never really talk about birds standing somewhere, because they're not really standing. They're holding something, and that's called perching. So these birds are perched. They're not standing. And they're always perched on something. So this bird is perched on a branch. They're always perched on branches. So if you have a pet bird, if you keep a bird in your home, then you always have to get something like this for your bird. And this is a bird perch. A lot of times, if you see an object that's very high up, you can't reach it, you might say that it's perched. Like, I can't reach that book perched on the top shelf. If you say that, that's a little bit fancy. So if you talk like that, people will say, wow, what impressive English you have. But perch usually means like sitting high somewhere. All right, let's go back and see how that was used. First came the 3 dogs, Bluebell, Jessie, Pincher, and then the pigs, who settled down in the straw immediately in front of the platform. The hens perched themselves on the window sills. So the hens weren't on the ground, they were up by the windows, perched on the windows. The pigeons fluttered. Fluttering is the movement of wings. Up to the rafters, the sheep and cows lay down behind the pigs and began to chew and cud. The 2 cart horses, Boxer and Clover, came together, walking very slowly and setting down their vast, hairy hooves. Hoof. A hoof is a part of an animal. Like the feet of an animal. Animals who have feet like this have hoofs. Well, that's funny because I thought the plural of hoofs was hooves. That's how I've always said it. I guess I could have been wrong. Let's see. What is the plural of hoof? Oh, it could be either. So I would say hooves with a V, but here in the book it's hoofs. So any animal that has this type of foot has a hoof. The 2 cart horses, Boxer and Clover, came in together, walking very slowly and setting down their vast, hairy hooves with great care, lest there should be some small animal concealed in the straw. So they were being very careful when they wanted to lie down, because they didn't want to hurt any small animals that maybe were hidden. I've been ignoring this word straw, but they keep using it, so I think we better, just in case you don't know what that means, this is straw. So the animals were being very careful to where they were sitting, because they were afraid maybe a little baby animal would be somewhere hidden in the straw. Clover was a stout, motherly mare. Okay, stout again is another word for, it's kind of a way of saying big, like fat. Maybe not exactly fat. And mare, I just want to double check, because I don't know horses very well, but I think it's just a female horse. Yeah, a female horse. Clover was a stout, motherly mare, approaching middle life, who had never quite got her figure back after her fourth foal. Foal, that's a baby horse. Boxer was an enormous beast, nearly 18 hands high, and as strong as any two ordinary horses put together. A white stripe down the back of his nose gave him a somewhat stupid appearance. And in fact, he was not of first-rate intelligence, but he was universally respected for his steadiness of character and tremendous power of work. After the horses came Muriel, the white goat, and Benjamin, the donkey. Benjamin was the oldest animal on the farm and the worst tempered. He seldom talked, and when he did, it was usually to make some cynical remark. Now that word cynical, I know what it means, but I don't know how to define it for you, so let me ask. Let's see. Cynical, believing that people are motivated purely by self-interest, distrustful, or human sincerity or integrity, concerned only with one's own interests, and physically. So, a cynical person, imagine someone does something nice for you. A friendly person, or a person who likes people, will say, "Oh, thank you, that was so nice of you to do me this wonderful favor." But a cynical person would think, "Why did he do me that favor? I wonder what he wants." So cynical people are always attributing bad characteristics to other people. Like, why are they doing that? They must want something. They must need something. It's like suspicious. It's very similar to suspicious. For instance, he would say that God had given him a tail to keep the flies off, but that he would sooner have had no tail and no flies. So he's saying, I have a tail, God gave me a tail to keep the flies away from me. But he's cynical, so he says, I would prefer if there were no flies, and I didn't have a tail. I don't care about my tail. Alone among the animals and on the farm, he never laughed. He asked why. He would say that he saw if asked why, he would say that he saw nothing to laugh at. Nevertheless, without openly admitting it, he was devoted to Boxer. The two of them usually spent their Sundays together in the small paddock beyond the orchard, grazing side by side and never speaking. Do you know the word grass? Do you know what grass is? Because I believe that the word grazing is related to grass, because grazing is what some animals do for food. For example, you can see here this sheep is eating grass. So you say this sheep is grazing. The two horses had just lain down when a brood of ducklings, which had lost their mother, filed into the barn, cheeping feebly. Cheeping is the sound, imagine the sound of baby geese. Cheep, 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 cheep. Or chickens or birds or anything that would be cheeping. And feeble means weak or soft. Isha Khalid says, I'm happy to see you reading Animal Farm. Well, yeah, I've always been curious about this book. I've heard about it, but I've never read it. So I think maybe you were one of the people who suggested it. I guess you are, since you're saying thank you. Several people actually suggested it, and I said okay, because I don't know anything about this book, but I'm curious. It's very short though. Probably we'll finish it next week. It's only 100 pages. Cheeping feebly and wandering from side to side, to find some place where they would not be trodden on. Well, let's look at the word tread for a minute. I think I actually want to put that word up here. How do I do that? I don't put words up here anymore, and now I've forgotten how to do it. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to put a verb up here, which is to tread. Whoops. That's not what I want to move. To tread. And to tread means to walk. But the reason I'm bringing this up as a word that I'm actually printing is because I think it's a pretty confident walk. The reason I think that it's a confident walk is because when you look at the tire, you know, the tire is not smooth. It has these little ups and downs on it. And that is called the tire tread. Or let's take a look at a shoe tread. So look at the bottom of a shoe is similar to a tire. And this is called a tread. This is what tread is. So to tread is to walk with confidence. You know, walk, nobody can push you, nobody can move you. You're walking very strong because you've got tread on your shoes. So let's just take a look at, I believe, let's see, various forms of the word tread. Let's see. Oh, but they don't. I mean, it's not a word that I use very much, but I'm pretty sure it's tread, trod, trodden. Tread, trod, trodden. Yeah, that's right. So it's a very irregular verb, but it just means walk. It's just a fancy way of saying walk. All right. The two horses had just lain down when the brood of ducklings, which had lost their mother, filed into the barn, cheeping feebly and wandering from side to side, to find some place where they would not be trodden on. So the little ducks were looking for a place to sit and listen to the story, but they wanted to find areas away from other animals, so they wouldn't be trodden on. Stepped on. Clover made a sort of wall round them with her great foreleg, and the ducklings nestled down inside it and promptly fell asleep. At the last moment, Molly, a foolish, pretty white mare, who drew Mr. Jones's trap, came mincing daintily in. To mince is to walk, I think to walk in a very feminine way. Let's see what happens if we look for pictures of mince. Mincing. I can't imagine what kind of pictures we're going to get for this. Well, you probably are familiar with minced meat, for example. That's a different kind of mincing. That's like ground meat. This is mince meat. Wait, let's see. Mince walk. I would say it's to walk in a very feminine way. Let's see. Oh, but this... Whoops. We don't want that. That's not mincing. That's not really mincing. It's hard to find some mincing. No. Oh well. Just accept it. that it's like a very feminine, very, very small movements, very small walking. Very. What about this woman? Is she mincing? I don't think so. That's not mincing. Okay. Oh well. Let's go back and read that. So at the last moment, Molly, the foolish, pretty white mare, so this is a female horse, and she, let's see, drew Mr. Jones' trap, came mincing daintily. Dainty means like very gentle. So this is a horse because she's a mare. You know, horses are big and strong, but she's a very feminine horse. So her movements are very gentle. And when she walks, she takes very delicate little steps. She minces. Chewing at a lump of sugar, she took a place near the front and began flirting her white mane, hoping to draw the attention to the red ribbons it was plated with. So again, this is another award-winning animal, and she has ribbons, red ribbons, I think, to show that she is an award-winning, beautiful horse. Last of all came the cat, who looked round as usual for the warmest place, and finally squeezed herself in between Boxer and Clover. There she purred. Purred is, I don't know if you have any familiarity with cats, but when they're happy, they make a funny sound. So that's what happens when a cat is very happy. It's like a little motor starts running inside their body somewhere, and that's called purring. They only do that if they feel very happy and comfortable. There she purred contentedly throughout Major's speech, without listening to a word of what he was saying. All the animals were now present except Moses, the tame raven, who slept on a perch behind the back door. When Major saw that they had all made themselves comfortable and were waiting attentively, he cleared his throat and began. To clear your throat is to... That's clearing your throat. Comrades, you have heard already about the strange dream that I had last night, but I will come to the dream later. I have something else to say first. I do not think, comrades, that I shall be with you for many months longer. And before I die, I feel it my duty to pass on to you such wisdom as I have acquired. Okay, so he speaks in a very fancy way, and he's just saying that I think I'm going to die soon, and before I die, there are some things I want to tell you. I have had a long life, and I have had much time for thought as I lay alone in my stall. A stall, that's a useful word because it can be used in many different ways. sort of means like a little place. So this is not really a store, but this is like a little place where they sell vegetables. And you could call this a vegetable stall. But look at this picture here where the horse is. Where the horse is... Well, where did it go? Where the horse is living. Oh no. I made it disappear. Oh, it's behind me. That's why. Okay, let's try like this. This place where the horse lives is called a horse stall. So a stall is kind of like a little, just a little place, not really a shop. Maybe like with 3 walls instead of 4 walls. It's very common to use this for places where animals live on farms, but also in markets. So for example, here in this market, these are not stores, these are not shops, these are stalls. Food stalls, vegetable stalls, fruit stalls. Those are called stalls when they look like that. Before I die, I feel it my duty to pass on to you such wisdom as I have acquired. I have had a long life. I have had much time for thought as I lay alone in my stall, and I think I may say that I understand the nature of life on this earth as well as any animal now living. It is about this that I wish to speak to you. Now, comrades, what is the nature of this life of ours? Let us face it, our lives are miserable, laborious. That means you work very hard, and short. We are born. We are given just so much food as will keep the breath in our bodies. And those of us who are capable of it are forced to work to the last atom of our strength. And the very instant that our usefulness has come to an end, we are slaughtered with hideous cruelty. No animal in England knows the meaning of happiness or leisure after he is a year old. No animal in England is free. The life of an animal is misery and slavery. That is the plain truth. But this is simply part of the order of... But is this simply part of the order of nature? Is it because this land of ours is so poor that it cannot afford a decent life to those who dwell upon it? Remember, we've had this word several times before, but I think it's important because I don't think that it's commonly taught in classes that the word dwell means live. And a dwelling is a place where you live. You can live in a house or an apartment or in a little tent in the street. They're all dwellings. They're all places where you live. That's what dwell means. No, comrades, 1,000 times no. The soil of England is fertile. Its climate is good. It is capable of affording food in abundance to an enormously greater number of animals than now inhabit it. This single farm of ours would support 12 horses, 20 cows, hundreds of sheep, and all of them living in a comfort and a dignity that are now almost beyond our imagining. Why then do we continue in this miserable condition? Because nearly the whole of the produce of our labor is stolen from us by human beings. There, comrades, is the answer to our problems. It is summed up in a single word: man. Man is the only real enemy we have. Remove man from the scene, and the root cause of hunger and overwork is abolished forever. Man is the only creature that consumes without producing. He does not give milk. He does not lay eggs. He is too weak to pull the plow. He cannot run fast enough to catch rabbits. Yet he is the Lord of all the animals. He sets them to work. He gives back to them the bare minimum that will prevent them from starving, and the rest he keeps for himself. Our labor tills the soil. Our dung fertilizes it, and yet there is not one of us that owns more than his bare skin. So, in case you're missing what's happening, this animal is complaining, we animals do all the work and we get nothing in return. And humans get everything. You cows that I see before me, how many thousands of gallons of milk have you given during the last year? And what has happened to that milk which should have been breeding up sturdy calves? Every drop of it has gone down the throats of our enemies. And you hens, how many eggs have you laid in this last year? And how many of those eggs ever hatched into chickens? The rest have all gone to market to bring in money for Jones and his men. And you, Clover, where are those 4 foals you bore? Who should have been the support and pleasure of your old age? Even was sold at a year old. You will never see one of them again. In return for your confinements and all your labor in the fields, what have you ever had except your bare rations and a stall? And even the miserable lives we lead are not allowed to reach their natural span. For myself, I do not grumble, for I am one of the lucky ones. I am 12 years old and have had over 400 children. Such is the natural life of a pig. But no animal escapes the cruel life in the end. You young porkers who are sitting in front of me, every one of you will scream your lives out at the block within a year. To that horror we must all come, cows, pigs, hens, sheep, everyone. Even the horses and the dogs have no better fate. You, boxer, the very day that those great muscles of yours lose their power, Jones will sell you to the knacker. What's a knacker? A person whose business is the disposal of dead or unwanted animals, especially those whose flesh is not fit for human consumption. So but that says it's British English, so that's why I don't know that word. It's not used in North America. I've never heard that before. Who will cut your throat and boil you down for the foxhounds. As for the dogs, when they grow old and toothless, Jones ties a brick round their neck and drowns them in the nearest pond. Is it not crystal clear then, comrades, that all the evils of this life of ours spring from the tyranny of human beings? Only get rid of man, and the produce of our labor would be our own. Almost overnight we could become rich and free. What then must we do? Why, work night and day, body and soul, for the overthrow of the human race. That is my message to you, comrades. Rebellion! I do not know when that rebellion will come. It might be in a week, or in 100 years. But I know, as surely as I see this straw beneath my feet that sooner or later justice will be done. Fix your eyes on that, comrades, throughout the short remainder of your lives, and above all, pass on this message of mine to those who come after you, so that the future generations shall carry on the struggle until it is victorious. And remember, comrades, your resolution must never falter. No argument must lead you astray. To be led astray, I've talked about this word before, but in case you haven't heard before, or it's always useful, even if you do remember when I talked about it. Stray means to be going in the wrong direction, to not be in the right place. So when you see a dog or a cat living in the street, we call that a stray cat or a stray dog. Most people learning English, I think they translate from their own language, and usually the way that they translate it is street dog. It doesn't matter what language, they usually call it a street dog or a street cat. But in English you say stray cat or stray dog. Because if you see a dog or a cat in the city, they shouldn't be there. They're in the wrong place. The correct place is for them to be living with a human. And if they're not living with a human, it seems like they're in the wrong place. So we call them a stray dog or a stray cat, meaning a dog in the wrong place or a cat in the wrong place. Astray means to be going in the wrong direction. So if somebody follows a religion or a political belief, if they follow all of the rules, they're going in the right direction. But when they start doing something wrong, something bad, they are going astray. That's what astray means. And let's see, how do they use it here? And remember, comrades, your resolution must never falter. No argument must lead you astray. So he's saying your goal should always be the destruction of humans, and never let anyone convince you of anything different. Never go from that road. Never go from that path of kill all humans, destroy all humans. Never listen when they tell you that man and animals have a common interest, that the prosperity of the one is the prosperity of the others. It's all lies. Man serves the interests of no creature except himself, and among us animals let there be perfect unity, perfect comradeship in the struggle. All men are enemies. All animals are comrades. At this moment, there was tremendous uproar. An uproar is a lot of noise, a lot of chaos. So when the pig said this, all the animals were surprised and they started talking about it. Either they didn't like it or they loved it and they said, what should we do next? But there's a lot of chaos and noise after the pig spoke. At this moment, there was tremendous uproar. While Major was speaking, 4 large rats had crept out of their holes. So creeping is like moving very softly and slowly. And creep, crept. So 4 large rats, they were in their holes, but they came out very softly, very slowly, looking around. 4 large rats had crept out of their holes and were sitting on their hind quarters. Remember, hind quarters, that's the tush. That's the butt. Listening to him. The dogs had suddenly caught sight of them, and it was only by a swift dash for their holes that the rats saved their lives. Major raised his trotter for silence. "Comrades," he said, "here is a point that must be settled. The wild creatures, such as the rats and rabbits, are they our friends or our enemies? Let us put it to the vote. I propose to this question let me read that again. Let us put it to the vote. I propose this question to the meeting. Are rats comrades? The vote was taken at once, and it was agreed by an overwhelming majority that the rats were comrades. There were only 5 dissensions, people who disagreed. To dissent means to disagree. So there were only 4 dissensions, the 3 dogs and the cat, who was afterwards discovered to have voted on both sides. Major continued. I have little more to say. I merely repeat. Remember always of your duty of enmity towards man and his ways. Enmity, I think it comes from the same word as enemy. But let's see, enmity meaning. Enmity, which derives from the Anglo-French word enemy, suggests true hatred, either overt or concealed. So to have enmity, and I think you always use the word have, or show, experience. It's a noun. So here it says, you always have a duty of enmity towards man and all his ways. So you must always hate people and the things that they do. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. And remember also that in fighting against man, we must not come to resemble him. Even when you have conquered him, do not adopt his vices. Vices are like bad habits or bad ways. So he's saying, don't do the bad things that humans do. No animal must ever live in a house, or sleep in a bed, or wear clothes, or drink alcohol, or smoke tobacco, or touch money, or engage in trade. All the habits of man are evil. And above all, no animal must ever tyrannize over his own kind. Weak or strong, clever or simple, we are all brothers. No animal must ever kill any other animal. All animals are equal. And now, comrades, I will tell you about my dream of last night. I cannot describe that dream to you. It was a dream of the earth as it will be when man has vanished. But it reminded me of something that I had long forgotten, many years ago. I was a little pig, and my mother and the other sows used to sing an old song of which they knew only the tune, and the first 3 words. I had known that tune in my infancy, but it had long since passed out of my mind. Last night, however, it came back to me in my dream. And what is more, the words of the song also came backwards. I am certain, which were sung by the animals of long ago, and have been lost to memory for generations. I will sing you that song now, comrades. I am only my voice. I am old, and my voice is hoarse. To have a hoarse voice means to have an artificially deep voice. So if you're coughing a lot, then maybe you talk like this for a few days. This is a hoarse voice. Or if you're yelling a lot, if you're very angry and you're yelling at people for a long time, after that time, you'll have a hoarse voice. Or if you're reading audiobooks all day on YouTube, maybe by the end of the day, you'll have a hoarse voice. Horse. This is not horse like riding a horse, H-O-R-S-E. This is H-O-A-R-S-E. So the pig is saying, I'm going to sing to you now, but you have to be kind to me because my voice is hoarse. Because he's old. Sometimes old people get a hoarse voice. So I will sing you that song now, comrades. I am old and my voice is hoarse. But when I have taught you the tune, you can sing it better for yourselves. It is called Beasts of England. Old Major cleared his throat. That's clearing your throat. Old Major cleared his throat and began to sing. As he had said, his voice was hoarse. But he sang well enough. Uh-oh. I think I'm getting a hoarse voice. Okay. Old Major cleared his throat and began to sing. As he had said, his voice was hoarse. But he sang well enough, and it was a stirring tune. So remember, to stir means to move. And if you have a stirring tune, that means a song that makes you move. It was a song that touched the other animals. Something between Clementine and La Cucaracha. So, well, that's weird. Clementine, oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. That's an old song. And La Cucaracha, La Cucaracha, La Cucaracha, da 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 da. So the song was somewhere between Clementine and La Cucaracha. I don't know. Okay, I have no idea what that's supposed to be like. Let's see. Beasts of England, beasts of Ireland, beasts of every land and clime. Hearken to my joyful tidings. So they're using older English terms here. To hark means to pay attention. And tidings is news. So pay attention to my happy news. In normal, regular, modern English, that means pay attention to my happy news. Of the golden future time, soon or late, the day is coming. Tyrant man shall be overthrown, and the fruitful fields of England shall be trod. Remember, trod is walking very strong and confidently. Shall be trod by beasts alone. Rings shall vanish from our noses, and the harness from our back. Bit and spur shall rust forever. Cruel whips no more shall crack. Riches more than mind can picture, wheat and barley, oats and hay, clover, beans, and mangle wurzels, I have no idea what that means, shall be ours upon that day. Bright will shine the fields of England, purer shall its waters be. Sweeter yet shall blow its breezes on that day that sets us free. For that day we must all labor, though we die before it break. Cows and horses, geese and turkeys, all must toil. Toil is another word for work. Toil means work hard, work very hard, unpleasant work. All must toil for freedom's sake. All must work very hard for freedom's sake. All must do unpleasant work for freedom's sake. Beasts of England, beasts of Ireland, beasts of every land and clime, hearken well and spread my tidings of golden future time. The singing of this song threw the animals into the wildest excitement, almost before Major had reached the end. They had begun singing it for themselves. Even the stupidest of them had already picked up the tune and a few of the words. And as for the clever ones, such as the pigs and dogs, they had the entire song by heart within a few minutes. To know something by heart means to memorize something. So they memorized the words of the song. They learned the songs by heart. So I know my telephone number by heart. That means I have memorized my telephone number. So the smart animals had already learned the song by heart. They already memorized it. And then, after a few preliminary tries, the whole farm burst out into Beasts of England in tremendous unison. The cows lowed, the dogs whined, the sheep bleated it out, the horses whinnied. Whinnying is the sound of a horse. That's a whinny from a horse. The ducks quacked it. They were so delighted with the song that they sang it right through 5 times in succession, and might have continued singing it all night if they had not been interrupted. Unfortunately, the uproar, remember uproar means like chaos, a lot of noise. The uproar awoke Mr. Jones, who sprang out of his bed, making sure that there was a fox in the yard. He seized the gun, which always stood in a corner of his bedroom, and let fly a charge of number 6 shot into the darkness. The pellets buried themselves in the wall of the barn, and the meeting broke up hurriedly. Everyone fled to his own sleeping place. The birds jumped onto their perches, and the animals settled down in the straw, and the whole farm was asleep in a moment. Okay, well that was chapter 1 of Animal Farm by George Orwell. It took a little bit longer than I thought. I was thinking maybe I won't do chapter 2, but I think I will. I'm going to read through chapter 2. But before we do chapter 2, I'm going to take a 1-minute break. So I will be back in 1 minute. All right, thanks for waiting. Let's continue with chapter 2 of Animal Farm by George Orwell. Seems like it's an animal revolution happening. 3 nights later, old Major died peacefully in his sleep. His body was buried at the foot of an orchard. This was early in March. During the next 3 months, there was much secret activity. Major's speech had given to the more intelligent animals on the farm a completely new outlook on life. They did not know when the rebellion predicted by Major would take place. They had no reason for thinking that it would be within our own lifetime. But they saw clearly that it was their duty to prepare for it. The work of teaching and organizing the others fell naturally upon the pigs, who were generally recognized as being the cleverest of the animals. Preeminent among the pigs were two young boars named Snowball and Napoleon, whom Mr. Jones was breeding up for sale. To breed means to create to create new animals. So people breed, animals breed. It means multiplying, so it means having babies. So these two pigs were breeding pigs. They were very good pigs physically. So Mr. Jones chose them to be the father of many baby pigs. They're breeding pigs. Napoleon was large, rather fierce-looking Berkshire boar, the only Berkshire on the farm, not much of a talker, but with a reputation for getting his own way. To get your own way means people always agree to do what you want. So this pig has a reputation for convincing people to do what he wants, getting his own way. Snowball was more vivacious pig than Napoleon, quicker in speech and more inventive. Vivacious means full of life, so having a lot of energy. But was not considered to have the same depth of character. All the other male pigs on the farm were porkers. The best known among them was a small fat pig named Squealer. Squeal is the sound a pig makes. Wee, wee, that's the sound of a pig. That's a squeal. With very round cheeks, twinkling eyes, nimble movements, and a shrill voice, he was a brilliant talker. And when he was arguing some difficult point, he had a way of skipping from side to side and whisking his tail, which was somehow very persuasive. The others said of Squealer that he could turn black into white. These three had elaborated old Major's teachings into a complete system of thought, to which they gave the names of animalism. Several nights a week, after Mr. Jones was asleep, they held secret meetings in the barn and expounded the principles of animalism to the others. At the beginning, they met with much stupidity and apathy. Some of the animals talked of the duty of loyalty to Mr. Jones, whom they referred to as Master, or made elementary remarks such as, "Mr. Jones feeds us. If he were gone, we should starve to death." Others asked such questions as, "Why should we care what happens after we're all dead?" Or, "If this rebellion is to happen anyway, what difference does it make whether we work for it or not?" And the pigs had great difficulty in making them see that this was contrary to the spirit of animalism. The stupidest questions of all were asked by Molly, the white mare. The very first question she asked Snowball was, "Will there be sugar after the rebellion?" "No," said Snowball firmly. "We have no means of making sugar on this farm. Besides, you don't need sugar. You'll have all the oats and hay that you want." "And shall I still be allowed to wear ribbons in my name?" asked Molly. "Comrade," said Snowball, "those ribbons that you are so devoted to are the badge of slavery. Can you not understand that liberty is worth more than ribbons?" Molly agreed, but she did not sound very convinced. The pigs had an even harder struggle to counteract the lies put about by Moses, the tame raven. Tame, you have animals like chickens and cows and sheep and dogs and cats who have lived with humans forever. And these are called domesticated animals. They just naturally live with humans, and maybe they can't even survive without humans. So that's a domestic animal. A tame animal is an animal that normally does not live with humans, but humans have trained to live with them. So sometimes, people like hawks and falcons, but those are very dangerous animals because they're not supposed to be with humans. But you can train them to be with humans. That would be a tame hawk or a tame falcon. Sometimes you can tame bears or elephants. So these are normally animals that never live with humans. But you can train them over a long period of time to accept humans and to live with them. Or monkeys. Sometimes you can tame monkeys. That's what tame means. So a raven, maybe you don't know what a raven is. They've mentioned this tame raven before. I'll just show you a picture of a raven in case you don't know what it is. It's a very typical bird. This is a raven. They don't normally live with humans. So if this is a tame raven, that means it accepts humans and lives with them, usually. Okay, so where did we stop? The pigs had an even harder struggle to counteract the lies put about by Moses. Hadi says, "Good evening. Good evening, Hadi. How are you doing today?" Moses, who was Mr. Jones' a special pet, was a spy and a tale bearer. Tales are stories, and we've talked about the word to bear something means to carry something. So a tale bearer means he's delivering stories to Mr. Jones. He's telling Mr. Jones what's happening. But he was also a clever talker. He claimed to know the existence of a mysterious country called Sugar Candy Mountain, to which all animals went when they died. It was situated somewhere up in the sky, a little distance beyond the clouds, Moses said. In Sugar Candy Mountain, it was Sunday 7 days a week. Clover was in season all year round, and lump sugar and linseed cake grew on the hedges. The animals hated Moses because he told stories, that did no work. But some of them believed in Sugar Candy Mountain, and the pigs had to argue very hard to persuade them that there was no such place. Hadi says expound. I don't even remember reading the word expound. Expound, to instill or to inculcate. Let's see. All right. Well, to expound means to explain. But, of course, explain would be a much, I think, more neutral word or common word. And the detail here is that to expound is to explain by setting forth in careful and often elaborate detail. Their most faithful disciples were the 2 cart horses, Boxer and Clover. These 2 had great difficulty in thinking anything out for themselves. But having once accepted the pigs as their teachers, they absorbed everything that they were told and passed it on to the other animals by simple arguments. They were unfailing in their attendance at the secret meetings in the barn, and led the singing of beasts of England, with which the meetings always ended. Hadi says the taming of the shrew, that's a Shakespeare play. Yes, what does the word shrew mean? Shrew has an actual meaning. Let's see. It's some kind of, I think, a bird. Oh no, it's like a kind of a mouse. This is a shrew. This is really what a shrew is. But in Shakespeare's time, I don't think anybody uses that word now. That was an insulting word for women. So The Taming of the Shrew is a play about a woman who gets married to a man she doesn't like. And the whole play is about him trying to accept that she's married and she has to live with him now, and that's just life. So that's the idea of taming. It's you're with I don't want to call this person an animal, a woman, but the idea is you take something that doesn't want to be there with you and you make it accept that it's living with you now, and make it calm. Just make it accept that new life, even if it doesn't like it. In the past, Mr. Jones, although a hard master, had been a capable farmer, but of late he had fallen on evil days. He had become much disheartened by losing money in a lawsuit. When you're disheartened, it's kind of like losing hope, losing your optimism, losing your happiness. He had become much disheartened after losing money in a lawsuit, and taken to drinking more than was good for him. For whole days at a time he would lounge in his Windsor chair in the kitchen, reading the newspapers, drinking, and occasionally feeding Moses on crusts of bread soaked in beer. His men were idle. That means his men were lazy. They weren't doing anything. To be idle means to not move when you're supposed to be moving. So an idle person is a lazy person. They're supposed to be working, but they're just sitting there doing nothing. His men were idle and dishonest. The fields were full of weeds, and the buildings wanted roofing. The hedges were neglected, and the animals were underfed. June came, and the hay was almost ready for cutting on Midsummer's Eve, which was a Saturday. Mr. Jones went into Willingdon and got so drunk at the Red Lion that he did not come back till midday on Sunday. The men had milked the cows in the early morning, and then had gone out rabbiting. So they went out rabbit hunting, without bothering to feed the animals. When Mr. Jones got back, he immediately went to sleep on the drawing-room sofa, and the news of the world over his face, with the news of the world over his face. So he had a newspaper covering his face as he slept. So that when evening came, the animals were still underfed, and at last they could stand it no longer. One of the cows broke in the door of the store shed with her horn, and all the animals began to help themselves from the bins. When you present somebody with food, like imagine you invite people over for dinner, you might put all of the food on the table, and then something you might say is, help yourself. Which means I'm not going to serve you, just take whatever you want. Just start eating however much and whatever you want. Because I'm not going to put it on the plate for you. It's not rude. It's kind of like treating someone as a family member. When you tell them, help yourself. That means just take whatever you want. It's yours. All of it's yours. Have as much as you want. Eat as much as you want. So when it says the animals began to help themselves, that means they ate as much as they want. They ate anything they wanted. One of the cows broke in the door and of the store shed with her horn, and all of the animals began to help themselves from the bins. It was just then that Mr. Jones woke up. The next moment, he and his 4 men were in the store shed with whips in their hands, lashing out in all directions. This was more than the hungry animals could bear. With one accord, though nothing of the kind had ever been planned before, they flung themselves upon their tormentors. Jones and his men suddenly found themselves being butted and kicked from all sides. The situation was quite out of their control. They had never seen animals behave like this before. And this sudden uprising of creatures whom they were used to thrashing and maltreating was just as they chose, frightened them almost out of their wits. After only a moment or two, they gave up trying to defend themselves and took to their heels. So they ran away. The animals won the fight. A minute later, all 5 of them were in full flight down the cart track that led to the main road, with the animals pursuing them in triumph. Mrs. Jones looked out of the bedroom window and saw what was happening, hurriedly flung a few possessions into a carpet bag, and slipped out of the farm by another way. Moses sprang off his perch and flapped after her, croaking loudly. Croaking, that's the sound of a crow. "Aw, aw, aw." Meanwhile, the animals had chased Jones and his men out onto the road and slammed the 5-barred gate behind them. And so almost before they knew what was happening, the rebellion had been successfully carried through. Jones was expelled, and the Manor Farms was theirs. For the first few minutes, the animals could hardly believe their good fortune. Their first act was to gallop in a body right around the boundaries of the farm. Let me read that again. That's a little bit confusing. Their first act was to gallop. Galloping is like the running of a horse. If you picture in your mind how a horse runs, that's a gallop. Their first act was to gallop in a body right around the boundaries of the farm. So I think maybe what that means is all the animals ran together as a unit, as a group, all around the perimeter, the boundary of the farm, as though to make quite sure that no human being was hiding anywhere upon it. They had raced back to the farm buildings to wipe out the last traces of Jones' hated reign. The harness room at the end of the stables was broken open. The bits, the nose rings, the dog chains, the cruel knives with which Mr. Jones had been used to castrate the pigs. To castrate an animal means to cut the pieces off of the animal so they can't have babies. To male animals. Were flung all down the well. The reins, the halters, the blinkers, the degrading nose bags were thrown on the rubbish fire, which was burning in the yard. So were the whips. All the animals capered with joy when they saw the whips going into the flames. Snowball also threw onto the fire the ribbons with which the horses' manes and tails had usually been decorated on market days. "Ribbons," he said, "should be considered as clothes, which are the mark of a human being. All animals should go naked." When Boxer heard this, he fetched. Fetch means go and get something. Go take something and return. When Boxer heard of this, he fetched a small straw hat, which he wore in summer to keep the flies out of his ears, and flung it on the fire with the rest. In a very little while, the animals had destroyed everything that reminded them of Mr. Jones. Napoleon then led them back to the store shed and served out a double ration of corn to everyone, with 2 biscuits for each dog. Then they sang "Beasts of England" from end to end 7 times running, and after that they settled down for the night and slept as they had never slept before. But they woke at dawn as usual, and suddenly remembering the glorious thing that had happened, they all raced out into the pasture together. A little way down the pasture there was a knoll that commanded a view of most of the farm. The animals rushed to the top of it and gazed round them in a clear morning light. Yes, it was theirs. Everything they could see was theirs. In the ecstasy of that thought, They gamboled round and round. They hurled themselves into the air. In great leaps of excitement, they rolled in a dew. They cropped mouthfuls of sweet summer grass. They kicked up clods of black earth and snuffed its rich scent. Then they made a tour of inspection of the whole farm. They surveyed with speechless... To survey something means to observe everything, to look at everything, to count everything. They surveyed with speechless admiration the plowland, the hayfield, the orchard, the pool, the spinney. What's a spinney? A small wood or thicket. So just a small group of trees. It was as though they had never seen these things before, and even now they could hardly believe that it was all their own. Then they filed back into the farm buildings and halted in silence outside the door of the farmhouse. That was theirs, too. But they were frightened to go inside. After a moment, however, Snowball, Napoleon, butted the door open. Snowball and Napoleon butted the door open with their shoulders. To butt something means to do this. So if they butt something with their head, it just means that they do this with their head. To butt something open, so normally you open a door like this, but to butt the door open with your head would be like opening the door like this. Did you ever see... Oh, my brother used to do this to me when I was little. Let's see. It's not very nice. Wait, let's find a picture. This. Oh gosh, this is horrible. It's funny because if you're the person doing it, it doesn't hurt. But it really hurts the other person. This is called a headbutt. Headbutt. So you see, butting is just doing this, especially if it's with your head. Napoleon butted the door open with their shoulders. So they didn't use their head, they used their shoulders to open the door. And the animals entered in single file, walking with the utmost care for fear of disturbing anything. They tiptoed from room to room, afraid to speak above a whisper, and gazing with a kind of awe at the unbelievable luxury, at the beds with their feather mattresses, the looking-glasses, the horsehair sofa, the Brussels carpet, the lithograph of Queen Victoria over the drawing-room mantelpiece. They were lost coming down the stairs when Molly was discovered to be missing. That's weird. They were lust. Lust is like a strong, passionate feeling. I don't know, maybe this is a misprint. They were lust coming down the stairs when Molly was discovered to be missing. That doesn't make any sense. Going back, the others found that she had remained behind and was in the best bedroom. She had taken a piece of blue ribbon from Mrs. Jones' dressing table and was holding it against her shoulder and admiring herself in the glass in a very foolish manner. So she took Mrs. Jones' blue ribbon and she was looking in the mirror. Oh, this would look so nice on me. The others reproached her. We've had that word reproach before. That's like when you tell someone, you're doing something bad. So she's got the blue ribbon and she's looking in the mirror saying, oh, this will look so nice with me. And the other animals said, you're doing something bad. Don't use anything human. No more human things. Stop acting like a human. The others reproached her sharply, and they went outside. Some hams hanging in the kitchen were taken out for burial, and a barrel of beer in the scullery was stove in with a kick from the boxer's hoof. otherwise. Nothing in the house was touched. A unanimous resolution was passed on the spot. That when you say something happens on the spot, it means right there, right here, right now, or right there, right now. So if something happens on the spot, it happens immediately in that place. A unanimous resolution was passed right there at that moment, right in that place at that moment, on the spot, that the farmhouse should be preserved as a museum. All were agreed that no animal must ever live there. The animals had their breakfast, and then Snowball and Napoleon called them together again. "Comrades," said Snowball, "it's 6:30, and we have a long day before us. Today we begin the hay harvest, but there is another matter that must be attended first." The pigs now revealed that during the past 3 months they had taught themselves to read and write from an old spelling book which had belonged to Mr. Jones's children, and which had been thrown on the rubbish heap. Napoleon sent for pots of black and white paint, led the way down the 5-barred gate that gave on to the main road. Then Snowball, for it was Snowball who was the best at writing, took a brush between the 2 knuckles of his trotter, so like this, and painted out Manor Farm from the top bar of the gate in its place. He painted out, he erased Manor Farm, and then he wrote Animal Farm. This was to be the name of the farm from now onwards. After this, they went back to the farm buildings, where Snowball and Napoleon sent for a ladder, which they caused to be set against the end wall of the big barn. They explained that by their studies of the past 3 months, the pigs had succeeded in reducing the principles of animalism to 7 commandments. These 7 commandments would now be inscribed on the wall, which would form an unalterable law by which all animals on Animal Farm must live forever. With some difficulty, for it is not easy for a pig to balance himself on a ladder, Snowball climbed up and set to work, with Squealer a few rungs below him holding the paint pot. The commandments were written on the tarred wall in great white letters that could be read 30 yards away, and they ran thus. The 7 commandments. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. That's commandment number 1. Commandment number 2. Whatever goes upon 4 legs, has wings, is a friend. Commandment number 3. No animal shall wear clothes. Commandment number 4. No animal shall sleep in a bed. Commandment number 5. No animal shall drink alcohol. Commandment number 6. No animal shall kill any other animal. Commandment number 7. All animals are equal. It was very neatly written, except for friend. Except that friend was written friend, so misspelled. And one of the S's was the wrong way round. The spelling was correct all the way through. Snowball read it aloud for the benefit of the others. All animals nodded in complete agreement, and the cleverer ones at once began to learn the commandments by heart. Remember, when you learn something by heart, that means you can memorize it. So I know my phone number by heart. That means I don't have to look. I have it in my head. "Now, comrades," cried Snowball, throwing down the paintbrush to the hayfield, "let us make it a point of honor to get in the harvest more quickly than Jones and his men could do." But at this moment, the 3 cows, who had seemed uneasy for some time past, set up a loud lowing. They had not been milked for 24 hours, and their udders were almost bursting. Burst means explode, and let me show you what cow udders are. The udders are where the milk comes from. So these are cow udders. So the cows are in pain because nobody has milked them in a day. Their udders are about to burst, explode. After a little thought, the pigs sent for buckets and milked the cows fairly successfully, their trotters being well adapted to this task. Soon there were 5 buckets of frothing creamy milk, at which many of the animals looked with considerable interest. "What's going to happen to all the milk?" said someone. "Jones used sometimes to mix it in our mash," said one of the hens. "Never mind the milk, comrades," cried Napoleon, placing himself in front of the buckets. "That will be attended to. The harvest is more important. Comrade Snowball will lead the way. I shall follow it in a few minutes. Forward, comrades! The hay is waiting." So the animals trooped down to the hayfield to begin the harvest, and when they came back in the evening, it was noticed that the milk had disappeared. Okay, well, that's the end of Chapter 2 of Animal Farm by George Orwell. Actually, this is turning out to be extremely interesting. I find this a very interesting book. I didn't know anything about it before. It sounded stupid to me before, but now I kind of like it. So I'm interested to see what will happen in Chapter 3. I will be busy in the mornings until Thursday. So the next reading of Chapter 3, probably Chapter 3 and 4, will be on Thursday morning. For me, it's morning. I don't know what time it is for you. But around this time. It started almost 2 hours ago. So around, for me, that's like 6:30 in the morning in Mexico. I don't know what that is for you. All right. Well, thank you for staying and watching and listening and asking questions. And I hope you come back when I read Chapter 3 and 4 of Animal Farm by George Orwell.